I am Dr. Eli Camp. Welcome. This is my podcast, Vital Wisdom. And this is where I talk about health, wellness, homesteading, raising children, and lots of other topics, all from the perspective of vitalism. I believe I've seen and taught others how the body can heal itself if it's given what it needs, it's not poisoned, and the innate healing ability of the body has been supported, not suppressed. It is my intention to bring what I have learned in my life, especially the last 24 years of being a physician, to help you be your own best doctor. Hope you enjoy the episodes, and thanks for being here. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Vital Wisdom with me, Dr. Eli Camp. So today's a short little podcast. I wanted to talk to you about this book that I wrote called The Unvaccinated Child. So years ago, when I was first in practice, one of the first patients that came my way was a young person on the spectrum. He couldn't speak. He was completely incontinent. He had a damaged neurological system. He was in his own world and had been this way for several years. And it all started within 3 days of getting a number of vaccines that he was overdue for. And mom and dad gave in to pressure to get him vaccinated before then. And he was about 4 when he was vaccinated. Up until that point, he had been developing typical development. He was talking, he was potty trained, he was running, jumping, laughing, everything was wonderful. And then he got this series of vaccinations, 6 or 7 of them, over a 2-day period, and he lost speech first. He became incontinent shortly after that. He started screaming and crying, and it was apparently, the parents describe it as he was in pain somewhere, but nobody could figure anything out. He lost his connection to the world and stopped making eye contact, stopped interacting with people, started rocking and biting himself and banging his head and hitting his stomach, and typical ASD symptoms. So here I was, pretty new doc, and they came in to see me, and we did a short visit like I did with everyone to see if I thought it was a good fit, if they thought it was a good fit to work together. And I remember sitting in the office and thinking to myself, wow, one, this is a horrible story. I felt so bad for the parents. They were really beating themselves up, which I tried to, tell them you can't do that. You did the best that you could do at the time. And I left them in the office for a minute and went and called one of my mentors. And I was like, I called them and I said, I don't know anything about treating autism. I'm not sure what to tell them. I don't want to give them any false hope. And I can remember to this day, my mentor said, you're not treating autism. You have a human body in front of you that's been damaged, and your job is to restore that body to health. And since our bodies are capable of great self-healing, as you restore that body to health, it is not only possible, but probable that those symptoms that have been given the diagnosis of autism will begin to recede. And who knows how far you can get him, but certainly can get him to a better place than he is right now. And so I went back in the office, and thankful for that reminder that I'm not treating autism. I was treating a person. I went back into the office and I said, okay, I can't make you any promises. And this is the first case of severe autism that I've treated. We had a few cases when I was in clinical training, but they were already pretty high functioning because they were folks who had been being treated by the time I got to see them on clinical shift. So I said, the goal is to restore health to your son. And as we restore health and his body heals, hopefully these symptoms will begin to shift and change. And they were on board. And I did what I did then, and I continue to do, and that is to establish the basis for health. We cleaned up diet, we did some supplements, we did some homeopathic detox protocols, we did a whole bunch of stuff. And slowly, over time, over the next 3 to 4 months, this child began to talk. They got the control back over their bladder and rectum, and their incontinence was improved. They started to make eye contact. They were no longer going around screaming constantly, nonstop. And by the end of that first year together, you really wouldn't even have guessed that this child should be diagnosed with autism. And they were so pleased with the outcome of this work together that, of course, as all parents with children who have severe diagnoses like this, they talk, they know each other. And soon my practice was flooded with children on the spectrum. I tell you that story because I saw hundreds of children over 20 years who were doing really well up until a point in time when they weren't. And that point in time usually came very shortly after vaccination occurred. Not every child that I saw who had vaccines had developed autism, although I saw kids with lots and lots and lots of different diagnoses come in. Some were much more severe than others. And as a result of working with this community and the parents being 100% convinced that had they not vaccinated their child, they would not have developed autism, my practice started to really become comprised of many, many, many people who were making the choice to not vaccinate. And my job became, working with these people, this educational route of, if you make the decision to not vaccinate, you're making another decision along with it. And that's a commitment to a particular kind of lifestyle, one in which you build and maintain health in your child, so that as they encounter the childhood illnesses along the way, their body is thriving, strong, and healthy, and it can deal with whatever these infectious agents are. Now, not every one of my colleagues believes in infectious agents. Some believe that it's dose dependent, meaning the more you're exposed, the more likely you are to develop something. Some believe that if it's just a moderate exposure and you have a very strong, healthy, thriving body, you'll be fine. And others believe it doesn't really matter. If you're healthy, you're going to get through it with some support. And I found myself coaching and guiding people into doing things a certain way. And I kept doing this over and over and over again. So build a strong immune system, keep the toxins out of your children, give them what the body needs to thrive, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, exposure to sun, playing outside, build their immune system by letting them get dirty. And when they get sick and have a fever, don't suppress the fever. Fast when there's a fever. Stay hydrated. Know what deficiencies might be in your area in the soil so that we know what we need to supplement using things like zinc and selenium and vitamin C and elderberry and all kinds of really good herbs, hydrotherapy, all sorts of really wonderful therapies, essential oils, and nursing the children who exhibited signs that would get a diagnosis of some childhood illness or infectious illness, nursing them back to health, letting them recuperate, and then go on their happy way. And through my practice came kids with mumps and measles, yes, measles, and flu and pneumonia, and a few cases of meningitis and chicken pox and all sorts of pretty typical childhood illnesses, and yes, even COVID. And these parents had either made the decision from the beginning to not vaccinate, or they stopped vaccinating because they heard something, saw something, were worried about something. And after telling hundreds of people the same stuff, I decided to write The Unvaccinated Child, and had two other really great naturopathic doctors help me out in writing this. One was Dr. Judith Thompson. She did a lot of the research at the CDC and gathered statistics and helped me edit the book, put it together. And Dr. Judith Boyce, who's written a lot of books, and she did the essential oils section for all of the childhood illnesses. This book starts with what is health? How do we build health? What kinds of things can you do to sort of create this healthy environment for your children? And it does sort of a tour through the different kinds of therapies. And then we go into each of the big childhood illnesses and some statistics about them, and really what you can do at home as the caregiver to nurse them through these illnesses. While this was designed for the families that choose to not vaccinate, it's very applicable for those people who do vaccinate, because we know, and if you don't know this is easily found online, and there's lots of information in the book, but even when a child gets a vaccination for a childhood illness, they can still develop the childhood illness. Sometimes it's a bit more mild than if not vaccinated. Sometimes it's more severe and with complications. And the vaccines do not offer lifelong immunity. So one of the big things that we see happening is children getting illnesses that they should have had at a very young age, get it at an older age when there can be a lot more complications. They're called childhood illnesses for a reason, and they should happen when they're young and their immune systems are thriving and vibrant. The book is rounded out with some resources and an apothecary on how it's got recipes and directions for how to do a number of the therapies that are written about in the book. You can pick it up directly through me. You can pick it up at Amazon. It is a book that every parent or caregiver should have on their shelf. This is not going to be a book for you if you're looking for reasons to or not to vaccinate. It's not uncovering conspiracies. It is not the statistics of vaccinated versus unvaccinated, although there is some information in there, and that's if that was available on the CDC website at the time we wrote the book. This is really a guidebook. It's the book you want to reach for when you think your child has chickenpox or mumps or measles, right? Or any number of other infectious childhood illnesses. To guide you through it, to reassure you, to settle you down if you are fearful. And I hope that this becomes, a really good resource for each and every one of you who have children and who have made this decision to not vaccinate. And for those of you who continue to vaccinate because you really want to be able to nurse your children through the childhood illness that they could get anyway. If you have any questions, reach out. let me know, make a comment. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to talk about some of my other books that I wrote and why I wrote them and who they're good for. We also have this particular book translated into Spanish. And so that's available. You can go over to vitalhealthpublishing.com and all the books are there. Hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.